Hi, this is Kimberly Reuter, business advisor and supply chain expert, and welcome back to my podcast, The Morning Mood. Hello, my moodies. Hope you all are doing well. There's been a lot going on. I've not been in the studio as much as I have been in the past. Things are moving on this side. I'm super excited to share some stuff that's going on in the other aspects of my work with you guys. I'm working with a new startup, and I'm super excited about it. Startups are my thing. I don't think I talk enough about startups than that, because that's really what I love to do is startups. And maybe we should talk about that in another podcast about why I keep getting sucked into supply chain. So I think that supply chain sucks is what we'll call that one. But that's going to come up next because I keep getting caught back into it. But anyway, today I want to finish our series about brokerage. So a few weeks ago, probably by now, I started a little series about brokerage. Customs brokerage is specifically what I'm talking about. In the first episode, I talked to you guys about what is customs brokerage? Like, what do they do? In today's environment, we're in late September 2025 right now, just to give everybody an idea what a time where we are. Customs is getting a lot of attention. Department of Homeland Security, which is what Customs is a part of, is in the news constantly. Tariffs have been leveraged for political gain at this point, and companies are suffering because we're paying a lot more to import products into the United States. And so customs has been getting a lot of attention, but I want to remind people of what customs' primary purpose is, because they're getting a lot of flack right now. And whether you agree with it or not, they do have a job that they're supposed to be doing. And their job, customs' primary focus has always been, and will continue to be, is to prevent illegal product from entering into the United States. And I'm not just talking about illicit drugs and stuff like that. Like, I'm talking about product that's not safe, that perhaps hasn't been FDA tested and approved. That's food that we don't allow in this country because of its processing could make us sick. Baby clothes that are not fire retardant. That is customs' primary purpose, is to make sure that what we're importing and bringing into the United States will not harm us or the people in the US who are consuming these products. And every country has this. This is not specific to the United States. Every country has. This is their purpose for customs, is to control what comes into the country. The secondary purpose is to collect money. Okay, but it is not the primary purpose. The primary purpose is to keep us safe. The collecting of the duties and taxes is more of an economic thing, and originally was put in place. Well, let's go all the way back. Back. That's how we got founded, y'all. The Tea Party was about taxation and tariffs. That's where the American Revolution started. Okay, that's why we started, was over double taxation on our products. That's where it all started. So it's always very interesting to me that we just keep coming back to this 350 years later. We're still dealing with this issue. But that's where tariffs started. That's how they started. And their primary purpose is to generate revenue. That's what tariffs do. The second purpose is to protect us from other countries dumping product into our country at a price that we can't compete with, that puts our domestic providers at a disadvantage. So, long story short, primary purpose for customs, safety. Second purpose, revenue. All right. So that is what customs does. And that is, like I said, worldwide. Every single country has a customs department, and that's their primary and secondary purpose. So in the second episode, what we talked about the different types of managing brokerage within a customs department and within a corporation. So there are two ways that you can do that. And the first one we have talked about already is having your broker be the primary responsible party. And what that looks like is you as a core organization or a company do not have customs compliance expertise within your organization. You may have somebody who knows a little bit about customs compliance, but they're not a customs broker. And you're not interested in taking on that liability within your organization. And so you hire a licensed customs broker to be the primary responsible party for your imports. And that is great. There are dozens, hundreds, I would say probably even half of the importers in the United States use this method, maybe even more, to be honest with you. Especially for small organizations, if you're just getting started out, you don't have the money to have a broker on staff, this is a great option. And what that means is that you have got to be responsible for providing all the information that your broker needs in a timely manner, complete in the format that they need it, and then they handle the classification, the other government agencies. They do the entry for you, of course. They're making sure that your duties are paid on time. They may take that money out of your account and not outlay it for you because those days have kind of gone. But for the most part, they are taking responsibility for what's going on with your product. And they are the one with the knowledge, and they are advising you. So they are telling you if you need things or don't need things, or if you're doing something wrong. They are advising you, and you're taking their advice. You're not arguing with them. Do you understand me? Okay. That is what we talked about in episode 2 about brokerage. So if you wanted to hear more about that, go back and listen to that episode. But today, what I want to talk to you guys about is when you bring brokerage in-house. And this is what I am familiar with. Now, as you guys know, I think I've mentioned, and if I haven't, I am so sorry because I'm not really good at reminding y'all about what I used to do or do and why my advice is a little bit interesting and hopefully helpful. So I used to be a licensed customs broker. I actually still have my license for now. And I worked for a variety of brokers for the kind of first 15 years of my career. And that was the model that we had just talked about. So companies would hire me or hire the company that I worked for to be their broker and to be their expert. Like, I am your expert. And then I went in-house and I went into Amazon and I built a brokerage department from the inside. And so this is what we're going to talk about today, is when you build a brokerage department inside. So the first thing that you have to have if you are going to be responsible for your own brokerage is you have to have a broker. You have to have a licensed broker with some experience in actually operating a brokerage operation. And I say this because a lot of people will just get, somebody who can pass an exam and say, oh, well, they're a licensed broker, but they don't really have any experience. So you really need to have not only a licensed customs broker, but you have to have someone who has a fair amount of experience in running brokerage operations. That is the number one thing you have to have if you are going to take your brokerage or any aspect of your customs brokerage in-house. And I'm harping on this point for this reason. Many companies opt to bring their brokerage in-house to, quote unquote, save money. We don't want to pay for classification anymore. We don't want to pay for audits anymore. We don't want to pay for other government agencies anymore. We don't want to pay whatever we don't want to pay for anymore. We're just going to do it in-house because if they can do it, we can do it. This is the primary mistake I see made. Yep. Oh, we can do it. We're just going to bring it in-house. We're going to save $100,000 a year on classification because Susie over here knows how to do classification, and we're just going to do it here. And if anything's wrong, the broker will just catch it for us. So we're not real worried about it. Bullshit. Here's what happens. You pay your broker for a service. So you pay them to do classification. Okay? You pay for it. That's why you pay them, because they're professionals and they're going to get it right. And if they don't get it right, it was their job to get it right. So you go back to them and you make sure that they fucking fix it. Right. But nobody wants to pay for that. So they go, okay, well, we're going to bring classification in-house because we're paying, $10, $15, sometimes even $25 a product to have it classified. So we're going to bring that in-house because it's easy. And we're just going to look it up online because, you can Google it all on U.S. government website, on USTR. The HTSs are all there. You can just type in the description of your product and it'll tell you. And it'll tell you if there's a binding ruling. You can read it and you can decide if that fits your product. Yeah. Why am I paying someone to do this when it's all automated now? I've actually worked with a client and this was their philosophy. They did not have a licensed customs broker. They didn't even have anybody close to being a customs professional. They thought maybe they were, but they were not. And they were in a heap of trouble. Heap of trouble. Such a big fucking heap of trouble. But that's what happens. The primary motivator for bringing brokerage inside is almost always to save money. But you have to hire someone who knows what the fuck they're doing. And in a lot of times, depending on your situation, the cost of that person may very well outweigh and outlay the cost of having someone else do your classification because they still have to do your entries. So you still need the broker. You're just bringing some of the technical aspects of what they do in-house. So do the math all the way, because you can't just bring classification in-house, expect your broker to catch it if you make a mistake, and pay somebody minimum wage. It's not going to work. It'll work for a minute, but it ain't going to work a long time. And then you're going to end up in a situation where you got an audit and your entries are getting held up and your shit's sitting in ports. And now you're in a big fucking world of hurt. And you're wishing you spent that 150, 200 on that broker. Yeah, to hire somebody who actually had some skills. You're going to be wishing you did it. Okay. So that is my rant on saving money with bringing brokerage in-house. Yes, you should do it if this is where your company is, but you still have to invest. It is not a money-saving opportunity. It is a reinvestment in your company. You have to think about it that way. And if you don't, you're going to get fucked. Okay. So what do you need if you're going to bring your brokerage inside? If you're going to say, hey, you know what? We've had a great relationship with our broker. We're going to take some of these more technical aspects of what we've been doing with our import supply chain, and we're going to bring that in-house. Meaning we're going to start managing our own classification. We're going to start managing our own participating government agencies, also known as OGAs, because you will always be OGAs to me. We're going to take all that in. We're going to take the responsibility of understanding what USDA wants, what FDA wants, what CITES is required. We're going to take all of that in-house, and we're going to make sure that we're responsible for that. Hazmat, all of it. Because we're going to save some money. But more importantly, we want to, one, make sure that it's being done well, correctly, the most efficient way. And the only way for us to do that is that we want to control it. And that is your motivation for bringing brokerage inside, to be more compliant and more efficient, not to save money. The saving money is an extra benefit. But if it's your primary motivation, I'm going to say it again, you're going to get fucked. Okay, so if you're going to bring brokerage in-house, what are the 3 things that you need? Because you need these 3 things. I don't care how fabulous your customs broker is that you just hired, because I am a fabulous customs broker and I had these 3 things. So what are that you need? You need a licensed customs broker with experience. So when I went into Amazon and built Amazon's import department, their whole customs compliance processes, ocean import processes, all of it, I had been a licensed customs broker for over 10 years and had been in the industry for 15. That's the kind of expertise that I brought to the table to build that at Amazon. Okay? So take that as maybe a litmus test, a bar, right? If you're looking at bringing someone in, how much experience do you really need? I'm going to say minimum 5 years of actually being a licensed broker and has a broker's license. That's basically what you're going to have to start with. That's number 1. And obvious, right? Because that's what we're talking about. Number 2, and this one's going to surprise you, but you got to have them on board and they got to be a part of the process. And they were probably already a part of the process when you're having your broker do everything, but they're going to have a little bit more responsibility now, and you better loop them in. And that is your finance department. Yes. Because possibly the way that you're paying your duties and taxes will change. And you need to have them be part of this process, because when it changes, and this is part of these technical things that we're bringing in-house to save money, you will have more responsibility to make sure that your duties and taxes are paid on time. And let me tell y'all something, Customs doesn't take late payments. So you got to figure that shit out. You got to manage it. You got to make sure that all your entries are getting customs, or that all of your entries that are customs cleared are set up for payment. They're set up for payment on time, and that the payment is actually made on time. So you got to have your finance department. They have got to be a part of this equation. The other reason your finance department needs to be part of this equation is that you're probably going to have to do some valuation things with your imports. How are things calculated? What is actually included in the cost of goods? Your finance department is going to be the ones to help you figure that out. And in the time of an audit, the one to back you up to show how you came up with it. So you want to do brokerage in-house? You want to save yourself a little money, honey? Guess what? You got to have a broker, and you got to have a strong finance team who understands how this works. All right. And what is the third thing that you're going to need if you're going to bring your brokerage in-house and you're going to take responsibility for this. Now, you may not actually have this on staff, and they're very hard to have on staff. And unless you're very, very big, it'd be very hard for you to have one of these staff. And in fact, when I was at Amazon, we did not have one of these on staff. I was kind of, I guess, the paralegal level. And then we had one on retainer, and that is a customs lawyer. Yes, if you're going to bring your brokerage in-house, and you're going to start managing it on your own to save those little, $25 you thought you were going to just set the world on fire with, you're going to need to have a lawyer. You're going to have a customs lawyer that you have a relationship with, that you're working with, who is familiar with what's going on with your business and who is advising you in situations where it gets sticky. Now, a lot of people come to me and they go, yeah, but we got a licensed customs broker. That's why we're paying that person so much money. As I mentioned, I am also a licensed customs broker. My signature went on every export package that left Amazon for 3 years, officer of the company in order to do that. But we still had a lawyer. I had my internal lawyers that I've mentioned before that I worked with that were dedicated to the work that we were working on to make sure that we weren't putting the company at risk. But in addition to that, we had an actual customs lawyer on retainer that we made sure we talked to when things got a little scary. Because the truth of the matter is that one person can't know everything. And your customs lawyer is going to be the one who advises you when you don't know, or your broker doesn't know, or maybe your broker does know, but the risk is a little higher than we're comfortable with. So we want to maybe float that by a lawyer to make sure we're not going to crumble or get shut down by this decision that we made. So you always need to have a customs lawyer around. Doesn't have to be an employee of the company because they are few, far between, specialized, and unless you're doing a shit ton of this, probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But you are going to have one available and preferably on retainer. When things go badly, and inevitably there will be an audit, inspection, something that just goes sideways, a decision that you have to make. Right now, a lot of importers are engaging with customs lawyers on trying to figure out this tariff situation. Are there exceptions available for me that I can get away with it? How can I adjust my value of my product to more accurately reflect what is actually dutiable? Because when we had little to no duty, we didn't really pay attention to these things. But not everything that goes into making a product is actually dutiable. So a lot of importers are engaging with customs lawyers to figure those things out. So you have to have one on staff. Just because you put a broker in, just because you hired this fabulous broker who's got 25 years experience, and I am sure she is fabulous. She is fabulous. I am not saying that she is not. But you still need a lawyer because sometimes you have to make decisions that may put the company at risk. And you need legal advice on what that means and what the consequences might be if this thing goes tits up. So 3 things you have to have if you're going to bring your brokerage inside. 3 things you must have to save that little classification fee that's just been eaten at your boss and he's just pissed off about it and he wants it gone, right? Well, that's great. We can't get rid of it. But here are the 3 things I'm going to have to replace it. A licensed customs broker with at least 5 years experience. Because after 5 years, you've seen quite a bit and you know what the hell to do, right? That's why 5. You're going to have them. And they cost money because they have a license and they have actual skills. You're going to need a finance partner who's there to make sure that you're getting everything paid on time because now this is your responsibility and not your broker's responsibility. And you're going to need some legal advice and legal counsel available and use it because it will save you money on the long term. Yeah. I am a big fan of having your brokerage inside. I am a big fan of managing and running your own brokerage operations and you taking control of that. It's what I built at Amazon. It is what I believe in. But in order for you to do that, in order for you to operate at that level, you got to invest. So the next time you guys are having a conversation about how you can save money in brokerage, flip the switch. How can I invest in brokerage to make it more efficient? That is the focus. All right, my Moodies, that's me for today. Peace out.